There we go. That's it now recording. So that's put me down as Scottish Libertarian Party host. You know, I think I'm in the wrong system, but it's all right. I'm recording to this computer and not to the cloud or anything, so they won't actually see it unless Kieran's really a spy.
Yeah.
You criticism? No. Okay. As you know, Steph is still struggling to speak, so I'll try and translate where possible. Okay, so we are recording. I'm going to chase up Adam and see if he'll join in. Sorry folks, Justin can't make it tonight. Call me bastard. Yeah. I'll see if Carly's joining us.
I'm not used to using the other thing, like I explained to you before. I barely used this Meet, whatever you call it, the Zoom call thing.
The Zoom.
It's paid in it. It's the type of thing, I don't know, subscription or something.
Workaholic. Adam's calling me a workaholic. Yeah, there is there's the option for a paid version which gives you extra features and stuff.
Ah, right, okay.
But only one person actually has to have it if you're in a group, and that person would host with their paid subscription.
Right.
Everyone else still gets to use the free versions.
Okay.
Yeah, the free versions have like
a time
like
limit.
45 minutes, isn't it? Yeah.
Something like that. It's not on a one-to-one basis. It's not limited, if that makes sense. I'm actually quite disturbed here looking at this computer. I actually look, Kieran's face on the computer looks, he's looking down at his phone. I actually looks as though he's looking at my groin.
Not much to see anyway.
I just hold the phone up a bit. That's a bit better. Makes a change from Steph looking at my groin. There was an agenda for tonight's meeting, and I put it up somewhere.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
No worries.
Aye. So Duncan, you've been missing out.
I know.
Sorry to hear about all the problems you've been having with everything that's been going on.
Yeah, it's a pain in the arse.
Right, so because of the complications and other things that have been happening recently, there's some of us have decided that it would be wise to start a backup political party, because at the moment it's looking as though the SLP is in quite serious trouble potentially. It's salvageable, don't get me wrong, it's not imminent, they're not, if it keeps going on the way it is, the Electoral Commission might just, there's a possibility, it's not a great possibility, but it's 50-50 at the moment. If nothing changes, then they could well just step in and close the party down, with the ongoing, this whole not following the constitution and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that no one's politically homeless, but we also want to make sure that we can start an organisation with a constitution that sort of liberates the members more. It offers the members peace of mind, security, and freedom to partake in the organisation as much as they want or feel the need to, without being at risk of some sort of authoritarian dictator leader deciding that they don't like them anymore, as has been quite often the case over the years. do you want to join in and actually type? Just leave it on mute, no? Just happy to sit there? Okay. Just tap me on the shoulder or something if you want to say something, okay? We're still trying to figure all this out. So, agenda is party name and descriptions is the first item. It's just a brainstorming session, this one. We don't need to finalise any decisions. I'm quite happy to take notes.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll type into the group chat as we take notes.
I would imagine that even when it comes down to it, I would pretty much imagine that it's got to be some sort of name that isn't registered, kind of like the way you do with business. I would kind of imagine that's the case. You'd have to be a completely different name or something.
That is the case. There are a couple of rare exceptions,
Right.
but you have to get the agreement of the other parties with that registered name.
Right, I can understand
And
that.
so when the Scottish Libertarians set up, they had to get an agreement with the LP UK because they were both sharing the Libertarian name.
Right, I
Without
see.
that agreement, the Scottish Libertarians would not have been allowed to register.
Right, I see what you mean. Makes sense.
So it's the same. I think the Scottish National Party had to get an agreement with the British National Party, even though they're not
Yeah.
supposedly alike on paper. In practice, well, that's a different.
In practice is a whole other story. I mean,
I'm just going to try and change this camera angle slightly, because it's just, we're trying to set up a little home office in the corner of this kitchen, just for Zoom type meetings and things like that. But it's sitting over here when it should actually be sitting facing this way for some reason. I think it's just laziness. I haven't finished the job yet. I think there was, I can't remember all the suggestions. Was there any suggestions or any names that jump out? It can just be a kind of working name, because at the end of the day, it would still have to be approved by the Electoral Commission.
I mean, for me, I agreed with your point, like the other night there, that it'd be ideal to have a name, you know, one
Globally recognised, yeah.
Yeah, one that's globally recognised as a sort of in the English language, but to have the name, you know, in Gaelic,
etc. Yeah, and registered as the party descriptions, and in that way, it can be used.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing.
Aye.
It's like I say, that's one thing I've actually, although I don't agree with the coercive side, it's actually one of the things that I've actually, agreed with in terms of what the government's done in terms of making Gaelic more accessible. But I don't agree with how it's gone about with the mandatory thing. But I think that the best way you promote the language is through things like that. You make.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, just introducing it into day-to-day things.
They're actually trying to do that in Northern Ireland at the moment as well, with Irish Gaelic, is they're actually trying to implement it as a mandatory topic in schools. And obviously, as you know yourself, Scotty, half of Northern Ireland are kicking up an absolute shit about that, because they see it as a direct threat to the union.
All right. See, that's the thing I don't, particularly see when people start associating politics and all this unionism and nationalism with the language. It's just wrong. They don't understand. It's something more to do with it's our heritage, or it's a language. It's something that our people once nationally spoke. You know what I mean? It's kind of
absolutely.
So, I think people need to step back and put aside their wee differences there. So.
Totally agree with
So yeah, I mean, in terms of names, I mean, I don't know if you can use the word libertarian. You'd probably have to go through some sort of
Aye, we could use the word liberty instead.
liberty. Yeah, yeah.
And that,
Could we use the Gaelic libertarian word like libertarian, or would that?
no, because it's a language translation of an existing registration.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I think I joked about that the other day. I don't know if you missed that,
No,
but I joked about the exact same thing. It'd be funny if we just registered libertarian. But I'm pretty sure we won't be allowed to, because it's a translation of an existing registration, and there is something about it covered somewhere. Whereas I know that the Liberty Party UK deregistered recently, so that name is available, and I've already spoken to the former leader, who has actually given us his blessing.
All right. So
Um,
that's the kind of are you able to take that then and rename?
yeah, so we could just drop the UK bit. I think they were UK Liberty Party. We could just go Liberty Party, and then translate that into the Gaelic and into the Welsh and the Irish Gaelic and whatever else, and expand it internationally. Now I think there's already a Liberty Party in France, but
All right.
I'm pretty sure they are pretty anti-liberty.
That's the exact opposite.
But again, it would be a completely separate registration. So if there was a libertarian movement in France, they could, in theory, hijack a branch of that party and ultimately grow enough to steal the name back. Bloody property rights, how dare they?
Well, is this
But yeah.
new party going to be regionally based, like just in the Scotland or England and Wales?
That is on the agenda. The way political party registrations work in the UK is that unless you're only contesting English councils, then you would have to register as a UK party, which covers Scotland, England and Wales. You then have the option to opt out of particular regions, which we don't really want to do. The only thing about that is you have to register a separate party with, you can use the same name and have the agreement, but it'd be a separate, from a legal point of view, it'd be a separate political party for running candidates in Northern Ireland. But once we're a little bit organised, there'd be nothing stopping us then registering in Northern Ireland as well.
Mhm.
But we would need 2 people in Northern Ireland to minimum to actually get it registered. But you live here.
I know, but I've got family over there that can.
All right, okay. So there we go. And I keep losing my. What I'm going to do is I'm going to screenshot my agenda.
As well as I've got family over in Northern Ireland, at County Tyrone.
Oh, so you're one of the tatty howkers, are you?
Aye.
That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. Tatty heed, no a tatty howker. They're too lazy to do that. You try to type something? No, for us, right? Okay. And totally ignoring us, She is here and she isn't. She's somewhere else. All right. Okay.
I know I've missed a lot of meetings, but I've been working constantly. So I never knew you were going to maybe start a new party. So I was quite.
Well, it wasn't actually on the agenda. It brought up a couple of times. I have declared that I'm not going to be leader of this party, right? In fact, I'm not even going to sign up as a member to this party, just out of principles, and more than happy to you know, I'm sure Steph will be the same, you know, donate and help and guide and, you know, build and stuff like that. And just get it established and get it up and running.
So what
I
you're saying, you
may
may be a
change my
George
mind.
Soros.
Sorry?
So you're going to be like a George Soros then?
Aye. All the influence without the power.
Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. Influence is earned, power is demanded, you know, it's very libertarian. There's no shame in that. And I do have some, you know, agenda item 4 about basic structural layout and possible concerns that any of us may have that we can address before we actually start building. But it's like, you know, I'd like to envision some sort of organization that is upside down from the traditional political party, where the, you know, there's a separate administrative service within the party, you know, a civil service for the party. There's no leadership control of that civil service.
Yeah, so they're held more to account to the
Yes,
those
and
part.
yeah, and if some sort of dramatic situation kicks off between two warring factions within a party, the civil service will be a separate legal entity within that party, who would then issue instructions to go to an AGM or something like that. You know, they'd be able to hold independent votes so that all the members got the chance to have their say and, you know, have their vote and things like that. So at the end of the day, you know, these things, what we've seen at libertarian AGMs previously, where the people within the leadership have at times, and you know, hands up, I've been guilty of it as well, myself and Steph, you know, dragged along members because we knew what way they were going to vote. We're totally guilty of that. As it's not the right thing to do. We know that. Okay. But at the same time, you know, every year at every AGM, it's been common practice. So whatever way people are wanting to vote, they're kind of dragging people along that they know or think will vote that way. I disagree in principle with having to vote in person. We're a modern society, modern technology, so let's move with the times. You know, let's have AGMs and conferences that are both in person and online, so you can attend in person if you want, and you can log in online and watch it live, and vote online as well at the times it's to vote. Perhaps even a constitution that allows for the AGM to be held, but votes to be counted over the following 7 days, so that, you know, the following week the results of the votes are held. You know, or something like that, and a follow-up AGM conclusion is hosted, so that these votes are formally announced and accepted, and any kind of transition of power within the party happens seamlessly through the assistance of the independent civil service within it, if that sort of makes sense. You know, but we wouldn't have to come up with different rules and things that made sure that the civil servants, for want of a better description, the administrators of the party were completely independent. You know, they would have to be, you know, they wouldn't have to be members, but they wouldn't be allowed to be candidates. They wouldn't be allowed to be in the leadership team. They wouldn't be allowed to be on the constitutional committee, anything like that. You know, they would basically have to. They would have a lot of power within the party, so they would have to give up their rights elsewhere, and vice versa. You know, the same with, say, for example, we had 32 local leaders for each authority, you know, local authority, instead of one national leader. You know, it'd be the same thing, that person then could not be on any of the committees. They couldn't be part of the administration, stuff like that. The administration would be there to serve them alongside the other members, but they couldn't dictate to the. You know, there'd be certain things they'd be allowed to do as part of, you know, as was what they could request from the administration, such as, well, we've got a leaflet design we'd like for this local area. This is the design we like. You know, can you facilitate it for us? Stuff like that. But you know, but this kind of dictatorial thing of kicking people out of the party, I don't think that should even be an option. You know, it's just like it's membership of a political party, although it does have some legal ramifications for an individual's career choices and things like that. It does zero harm. You could have literal rebirth Adolf Hitler, or whatever, you know, any of the commies, Russian commies, be regenerated back to life, and they decide that they're going to have membership of a political party. So what? They're paying their fees and they only get one vote, just like everyone else. So
Yeah, the way I look at it is kind of down to the fact that things would take care of itself in terms of the market. If for example, because the message of the political party itself would be for liberty, even if, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, even if it was someone who did have, let's say, for example, Nazi views or whatever, at the end of the day, they're basically contributing to a party that's for liberty and against all meaning of, you know, that very thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way I look at it is the market itself would deal with that itself rather than that whole issue. So I can fully understand where you're coming from.
And with a localized structure of organization, you know, if two people don't like each other, you know, it doesn't matter, because you know, if for example myself and Tam, you know, proverbially speaking, we're both in this new party with this new sort of structure. He would be in Edinburgh, I would be in Kilmarnock. We wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't matter. We could hate each other's guts for all anyone cared, but it'd be completely irrelevant, because I'd be within the confines of my local area, Tam would be within the confines of his, and neither of the two would meet unless they both went along to an EGM or something like that.
Well, I said it myself, that's what should have happened. These elections, you should have been able to stand regardless of his views on you as a candidate and as a person. The fact that you weren't able to do that. I had a phone call with Tam, and Tam actually explicitly told me that he didn't trust you, and because he couldn't trust you, he was actually declining for you to even run as a potential candidate for the local council elections. That is wrong.
And that's where, that's essentially an example of where the leadership, the constitutional committee, or a constitutional position, and the administration of a political party has all come together under one person's authority. And they are three separate departments, essentially, within an organisation. And because one person is taking a fallout with the other, it's tied the entire system up. So we ended up in a situation where the political party is not being represented at all in the local area, with the exception of one candidate. Whereas we should have had 9, we should have been competing to become opposition to the council. And now we're just...
And what that's effectively done for the Scottish Libertarian Party is, the last time these local elections were here, we were able to stand 9 candidates, is that correct? And what we've now done is we've regressed as a party, and we're now standing one candidate, which is myself,
So we're worse now than what we were 5 years ago.
all because of a personal vendetta.
Regardless of
sad,
who's
that.
right or who's wrong. We have to, remember this meeting isn't a bashing the SLP or Tam himself. This is actually about the new party. So aye. My vendetta, Steph saying your vendetta with Tam even impeded my candidates. So yeah, and we had evidence there as well to back it up. We were able to share it on that group chat that Tam himself blocked all the East Ayrshire candidates
I'm just on the thing now.
simply because
Right.
of his disagreement with me. So, but we're not here to bash Tam. So I'll pull it back.
But of course, it is an example of
It's strictly an example to use. It's something we want to make sure doesn't happen. So, I mean, myself and Kieran both live in the same town. If we were to have a dramatic fallout, then we'd have to make sure that, if we were both members and both candidates, potential candidates in the same area, there would have to be some sort of administrative service that was independent, that offered the equal opportunity for both of us to compete.
Yeah, I think that there should be a means where people can still get on with doing their thing, put aside differences, and even if there's those conflicts and that, people should be able to deal with that in an adult manner, in my eyes. Sometimes
emotions do run high. I'm guilty of that just as anyone else is. So we have to make sure that there's a system or a process in place that keeps even the most powerful and influential of people in check.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think I agree in that sense. It's like I say, it's just one of those things. So yeah, I think the whole idea around it is good. I like the sounds of it. It does sound promising and everything like that.
But we've digressed away from Agenda 1 right enough, which was the party name and descriptions. Would there be any objections just now to use the working name Liberty Party with Gaelic and Welsh translations as descriptions for the time being?
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean, if you do find, like, because in terms of the Gaelic name for that, then that's good.
I put it in the group. I already done the translations.
That's fine.
I would need to look them up again. In all honesty, I think it translates into Gaelic as party first, party of liberty or something.
Yeah.
Like
It's because Gaelic basically puts the verb first, and then it puts the adjective that follows the verb, and that's kind of how Gaelic goes. It's kind of back to front. That's kind of why it does that.
Aye, like, it's a school of such and such rather than On Thank Primary School. It's a school of On Thank.
Yeah, it's kind of back to front.
It's weird. I have to admit, I love the idea of learning Gaelic, but I never done it properly. It's something.
Easter feature language.
So
I don't speak Elvish.
So we'll go with the working title of Liberty Party just now, with the language translations as the descriptions.
Yeah,
we can formalise it at another meeting.
of course.
It gives the people that aren't here an opportunity to review the minutes and make alternative suggestions or agree with the ones that we've come across tonight. So the second agenda item was headquarter address. Now, obviously, privacy is important to a lot of us. It's easy enough, as we've seen other examples, and we'd already addressed it with the SLP at the time as well. It's when someone uses a personal address as a party headquarters, it does tend to draw unfair attention, and perhaps even, you know, private correspondence going to other senior members of a political party, but it's going through one person's address. Is the mail getting handed over correctly? Is privacy and data protection being handled correctly, and things like that? So there's all sorts of, and again, security of that individual as well. You know, the party's address is on a very, very public register, and so for that, you know, for any one member's or individual's personal address to be up like that, I don't think is a good idea. With other political parties, right, the big ones actually have physical premises, but it's not really necessary. You can use rent an address type services. They're actually a lot cheaper than, you know, some people would think. Letters and documents that come through are simply scanned and emailed. So if it's done that way, then there's, by default, because it's an email, it's scanned into an email for you. There's a recorded backup, you know, and things like that. And you can pay the extra for the mail forwarding if you want the physical stuff, which is only important if we were at a stage where we had a premises, you know, if we had political campaign buses and we had to get the V5 documents through and stuff like that, and stuff like that, you know. But until we're at that sort of stage, I don't think it's necessary going to that sort of expense. So you're talking maybe, what is it, £160 or something like that, give or take. I'm just, you know, you get what you pay for, but there's some places will do it for 50 quid, but they'll only scan official documents. But if somebody actually wrote you a letter, they wouldn't scan and send you that on, they would just bin it, unfortunately. But if we paid a little bit extra, they would scan and email all mail that came through to you, unless it was obviously just junk mail, which they don't bother wasting their time with.
So is there a way to like start up like a private business but attach it to a political party?
There is, and I was actually going to come on to that as under agenda 4, the basic structural layout and possible concerns. So legally speaking, a political party can be a shareholder in businesses registered. So you know, it is entirely possible. It could be, and it was one of the suggestions I briefly mentioned to Kieran earlier on as well. And just to very quickly answer your question, Duncan, it's entirely possible to have a separate limited company, legally protected, so that limited company would be responsible, would be contracted to handle the administration of the party, so that, you know, that there was a completely separate team employed by the company, who then billed the party for their services, you know. But it'd be a non-profit basically, because any profits that actually made would go back into party funds. So it doesn't matter what the fee or the charges, they would just pass on the cost. Take it out of party funds anyway, when you get to that stage. But at the same time, you know, if most of the administration is automated through computer software and things like that, you're only talking, you know, a couple of people just as a backup, so that, you know, there's if there's a director registered with the company, and that director dies, then if there's another director already there, it just makes the process a lot simpler. If there's only one director and that director dies, it's a hell of a lot more complicated. to actually get a director registered. And it would actually be easier because the political party would be the sole shareholder of that company. Then the political party could then appoint a new director, in theory, because they would have the voting rights, but it would mean an AGM for the company and stuff like that. But again, you know, there's legal protections around that. And if there was a complete catastrophic breakdown of the party leadership and other structures within the party, having a separate legal entity that's responsible for the administration of the party means that, you know, an AGM can be called, the voting structure would still be there, and systems would be repaired without any more disruption than necessary. It's basically the kind of fail safe. If all else fails, the company takes over the full administrative responsibilities and re-establishes new people through the formal voting processes without losing the structure to do so. Whereas if you don't have that sort of system, as we've seen with recent events, the entire administration system collapsed, and just because of fallout, you know, I walked away and they took all the admin stuff off me, so I handed in my resignation, and even now, you know, I'm still seeing glimpses of messages back through saying, you know, how do we do this, how do we do that, and it's like, I know the answer to it, but it's not my job anymore.
I know I wanted leaflets for myself, but they don't know if they have any templates for it, so I had to make up my own one. It's not the best, but it'll do.
Whereas, you know, ironically, Cameron does have his own template, you know, or well, Cameron got his leaflets through a template. You know, Tam done his, you know, who else, that Gary Smith and all the rest of it. Even, you know, Daniel as well, everybody got, you know, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have got as well. Even Kieran got his, and then he adapted it to make his own anyway. That's another story. You know, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have, or no plausible reason why you shouldn't have, you know.
Although, in order for me to obtain the templates, I had to go through you. I actually didn't get them through the party.
Oh, well, there we go.
So actually,
well, you still got the party one, but it was you preferred altering it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's. I mean, you've got leaflets now, as far as I'm aware. So, you know, we can cross that bridge now and leave it behind. So
is there any chance for the Scottish Libertarian Party to get saved, or is it just gubbed?
It can be saved. It's not going to be easy with the way Tam is and his determination and stubbornness. I think it's going to be an incredibly difficult AGM. Basically, what needs to happen is a full restructure. There's no question of that. If we get to this AGM, we had a brief discussion about it earlier on, if the Libertarians get to this AGM and they do not make significant changes to the Constitution and to the current leadership and Constitutional Committee as well, they've all basically just got to go. They've shown themselves as every single one of them is failing the constitution of the party. They've brought their own personal, you know, their personal emotions and disagreements to a place where there should have been, you know, independent thought and stuff like that. And so the fact that it's judge, jury, and executioner, and they've placed the party at risk. So one of the things in the Electoral Commission rulings and in the law is that if a political party doesn't act within its own constitution, they can use the threat of deregistration. So if the members at the AGM do not vote for change, and the Electoral Commission get back involved over another complaint, they could, in theory, I'm not saying it will happen, but the following AGM from this one, if there is no changes, in theory, you could very well see the leadership bringing up the subject of, right, okay, we're deregistered as a party, are we now voting just to close the party down? And there wouldn't be any other debate at the AGM. It would be done and dusted. By that point, it would be too late to save it. But as long as the name itself is still registered with the Electoral Commission, there's ways to save it, but it would be an uphill struggle unless the leadership, the current leadership and the current committee actually make the changes that's necessary. Then they're not hiding to nothing. I didn't set out to destroy anything. All I've done is simply point out the flaws in their processes and in their systems and stuff, and their own personal emotions have run over, and instead of actually fixing the problems that have been pointed out, they're trying to gloss over them, pretend they're not there, and then pass the buck as if I've went and took a sledgehammer to something that was already broken. All of a sudden it's like, there's a problem there, need to fix it.
Yeah, obviously I can't comment because I haven't been there for the length of period of time and stuff like that. But obviously, by the sounds of things, sometimes you've just got to take, like you say, not get personal feelings involved and stuff like that. And obviously, if there is conflict in that, then it's just a case of just having to abide by whatever. By the sounds of what you had explained, I don't think things have gone right. Unfortunately, which is quite sad to say the least. It's just sadly one of those things. And it just sounds like the way the current thing is, it doesn't seem to be going in the right direction in that manner, because as a like you've said before, as a Libertarian Party, I don't believe that it should, because the image I'm getting from it, it does come across a bit like there's a power structure. If for example, they just don't like you or that, they could just get rid of you. You know what I mean? I don't particularly agree with that side. Like I said, I don't know the full story, what happened, obviously, but from briefly of what I've seen, I don't particularly agree. You know what I mean?
Aye, it's just it's the fault isn't, or the problem itself wasn't the disagreement, believe it or not. It was a lack of structure to deal with the disagreement. What disagreements and arguments, as I pointed out several times before, they're always going to happen in any and every organisation. So it's making sure that an organisation has the capacity, has the structure, has the facilities to quell some sort of disagreement, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from in that regard.
If that makes sense, which is why, as Duncan asked about a separate business structure. Yes, that's. I think that was actually one of the things I brought up in my manifesto, actually, when I was still challenging for leader. Setting up a company for the party, so that you know, the party could then start gaining influence in the business world, and profiting where in a way that we don't need to rely on members and their donations. Because at the moment, you know, as you all know, myself and Steph, you know, I've put in vast sums of money into the Libertarians. You know, so that in a way we basically bought our influence, for want of a better description. You know, and you know, I've went on and worked my arse off as well. We both have, you know, but I've done a hell of a lot over the years, and brought a bit of influence and experience and knowledge to the organisation, all for it to be thrown away over just another silly disagreement. Is, you know, and it's not just, I mean, I had the disagreement. I felt I couldn't trust him anymore, and I resigned from the leadership. But that wasn't good enough for Tam, and he just kept going on and on and on, to the point that it was. I mean, I've still got the messages way back from January, where he was wanting, you know, he was sending me text messages, he was basically wanting me out of the party. You know,
why in January? I mean, is it something to do with?
Well, that was the beginning of January was when the dispute started.
Right.
Or the kind of, it was kind of following the AGM after the launch of the website. Tam started getting his little critters in his ear saying, "Oh, the website's no good enough. It's a bit bland looking, this, that, and the next thing." And of course, he just. I mean, he's not alone. There's lots of people who pay too much attention to critics, and they forget, you know, to look at facts and figures to get a balanced viewpoint.
Right.
And that 6 weeks, they expect that the website was actually quite expensive to run, because it was an entire administrative system. Basically, the way I was putting it was that if, you know, as we all know, the SNP got over 100,000 new members in the space of a month. Just after the referendum, the system I built for the Libertarians, if we got 100,000 members in a single week, one person would be able to volunteer full time for that week and handle all 100,000 members.
Right.
That's how powerful a system it was.
You
know, so and it was almost fully automated to the point that, you know, one person could realistically do that job. You wouldn't want one person able to do the job, because if they were off sick or off ill or something happened, or they just quit, you know. But at the same time, it was a multi-member sort of platform, so it didn't have to be one person. And I'd always set it up so that if something did happen to me, the party would still have access and control over it, which is what was demonstrated. They basically booted me off the admin system so that they had full control themselves, and then blamed me when it broke because they didn't know how to work it. That was just the argument, and I just said, look, I'm fed up fixing it for you, you know, so I'm not going to fix it again. So that's me sabotaging their website.
It sounds to me, the way that that's painted, and that, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not taking sides or nothing, but the way that is painted, it sounds like they stitched you up. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, you know,
as if they've had a vendetta against you a lot.
It was basically, it was down to, I don't think it was deliberate vendetta, certainly not at first.
Right.
You know, quite happy to concede on that point. The issue was, and I was looking back at the video from my disciplinary at the start of February. Tam himself had decided to, you know, we always had these meetings and everyone would come out singing from the same hymn sheet, and they were always very productive when we had them. And 2 days after, you know, we had the meeting, and 2 days after that meeting Tam suddenly changed his mind and started micromanaging something that he freely admits he knows nothing about. And he
Yeah.
admitted in the disciplinary hearing that he knows nothing about websites, but it's still his right to decide what happens to it and who has control over it, which is
Yeah.
fine. I conceded that point, but I did say, look, I've been advising you against these decisions for that very reason. You do not know what you're talking about. You do not know what you're doing, and the people you're putting in place do not know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'd offered
I know.
to show them how it works and step back if that's what you really wanted. But they decided they didn't want my advice either. So
I know from experience because I did all of the graphics side of stuff. And you know, my older brother, he is an actual web developer, and I know even for when getting my own photography business website built, which is still to get done, but even when it comes to that, he has to build it in such a way that I know or I'm able to deal with it myself. You know what I mean? So I understand that. It's one of these things that if someone doesn't know what they're doing from the administrative side of things of a website, it's very easy to do something that causes it to mess up. And I can fully comprehend that. And from that sense, it's a logical point of view, a logical argument that you have personally made that at the end of the day, okay, he is leader, but
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, you've got to have an open mind and accept that you've got to leave it down to someone at least that's got some knowledge in that sense.
Aye. And good leadership is recognising when who the right people are for the right job and trying to onboard them or get them to do the work.
That's what I was saying earlier. What I was saying earlier was what they should have done is when you were building the website and when you were doing all of the duties that they gave you, they should have equally distributed it to people in those positions who knew what they were doing, so that if anything did happen or would come up, they would know what the hell they were talking about and knew how to fix the website. For example, if they didn't like the look of the website, well, you've got the skills, you know how to do it, make your implementations. Instead, you were the only person who was building the website, who was doing all of these other different tasks that the party was meeting, that nobody else in those positions learned how to do the same thing as what you were learning to do on the job, basically, whilst you were building the website. So
that's one thing I was obviously going to ask. I mean, in terms of when it comes to the new political party and stuff, and you've got that, side of things, is it something? Are you planning on getting a website thingy for it?
I'm more than happy to organise something, and certainly show people how to maintain and operate it. I mean, once it's one of these things, right? Website technology moves and improves with time. We could build a website this year, and in 5 years it's completely obsolete and out of date. So it's not. It's a bit like buying a new car. It's going to be expensive and time consuming to organise it the first time, but 5 or 10 years down the line, it's going to be completely worthless.
Okay, I can understand.
Yeah, websites and stuff like that are no different. Technology will move on. The same with the computers we're all using just now. This might be a new phone last year. It's already out of date. Kieran just bought one. What was it, yesterday? And this time next year there'll be a newer version out, and his will be needing updates and maintenance and stuff like that. Just like everything else, an administrative system through a website will need ongoing maintenance and will need improvements, and at some point down the line you scrap it and build a new one. So
it's why this is why I cringe, and I continue to cringe whenever I see this or hear that Stephen had too much power in the party. Well, maybe the reason why Stephen had too much power in the party was because he was left to build the website and do everything else that was being requested for the party, instead of it being distributed evenly to other people.
I've basically done everything. So even organising leaflets, organising rosettes, you know, sending out letters.
Don't even get me started on rosettes. Don't even get me started.
But
on
I mean, we're digressing. We should still be on point to the headquarter address. I had a couple of ideas that I was kind of googling, and you know, feel free. An address could be anywhere within the UK to register a party.
Yeah.
Northern Ireland to register one in Northern Ireland. So I was playing about. There was a couple of different suggestions. Excuse me. We could, in theory, sorry, too much gas from that can. It's hot in my chest. In theory, I was playing about. You know, we could pick any of the cities within the UK. You know, I'm wary that, you know, we're starting this up in Scotland, and if you start something up in Scotland that struggles to succeed down in England, and vice versa, but we're you know, if the party's registered in England or Wales, it will struggle in Scotland. But at the same time, I know that with the political system in Scotland, we're much more likely, especially with so many of us based here, we're much more likely to get some sort of success in Scotland, regardless of where the address is. Whereas we do the other way about, if we have a Scottish address, and we're all based in Scotland, and the ease of getting into political elections in Scotland is much easier than it is in England.
Understandable.
Much more frequent than it is in England. It'll be harder for any of us to try and influence some sort of group to start up somewhere in England locally. So I think I personally would suggest an English address. If independence happens in the future, we would have to separate parties anyway, you know, so that's not really a necessary part of the equation. It would just be a simple process. We just register the same party name, etc., etc. There'll be a time frame given and a process to do it. You know, these things aren't just flung on, and it's like, you've got 5 minutes to do this, and if you haven't done it, it's tough shit. You know, there will be a process. So, and it would be, you know, basically a registered address. It's you're renting a registered address, so it's not, you don't have a physical premises, you don't have any running costs or anything else like that. You just pay the annual fee, and they scan and send you the letters, so it doesn't matter where. So I was trying to think then from a symbolic point of view, if it's UK wide, do we really want to be London centric? But at the same time, would we want it in Manchester for the same reasons? You know, it would be harder to get people in London involved, and things like that. So I was thinking something more symbolic, if we could find a sort of geographical centre and then pick the closest city or something like that. But I'm entirely open to suggestions. I've got several different ideas. None of them are right or wrong. And I've just realised that, you know, I should be asking your opinions before giving my own, because that's bad management practice. So Kieran's laughing at me. I mean, do you have any ideas, Duncan?
Well, what I would want just now is, obviously a lot of members would be in Scotland, so why do we not just build a base in Scotland at the moment and then think about England later on in the iteration of the party?
Well, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but believe it or not, there's some people down in England that I know of that are interested, and I'd like to give them just as much of an opportunity to start as we have, and if that means conceding, you know, but you know, I get the idea of a Scottish address, but I think we've already got a large Scottish influence as it is.
Yeah.
And
It's just
not
that
limiting ourselves to Scotland.
I would propose maybe say if you want to go to Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, should you not just have separate leaders for separate areas, like for Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland?
Well, yes. What we can do is you have a registered address for the UK-wide party, the central party as it's known, by the Electoral Commission. And then you're allowed to set up branches. Each have to be registered with their own address, their own treasurer, and their own leader, or as such, or the two registered officers. But again, that's almost the equivalent of an extra political party when we're really just setting up one.
Yeah.
And what we could do is we decide on an address to register as a central party, but then also set up registered addresses for communication purposes in the other countries. So we could have a London address for the central party, an Edinburgh address for Scottish communications, and a Cardiff address for Welsh communications, or something like that. And then that way is the kind of it's possibly a sort of it's an extra expense. It's not a huge expense. It's an extra expense, but it does give us
flexibility.
Yeah, it's like you'd be able to write to us at any of the registered addresses.
It's just what I was thinking of is because how people react to like a Scottish person telling an English person what to do is, somewhat like they can take it as an insult. So that's why I wanted to say like different leaders in like different areas, because you might get the odd, because you know what it's like. Nicola Sturgeon says something about England and all England says fuck off.
Yeah. Aye. My proposal, which comes under Article 4, is having local leaders, one leader per local authority. So that would be the equivalent of 32 local leaders in Scotland. Now, in theory, that I would have it as a practice that people could nominate themselves to become a local leader for that, based on the local authority that they live in, and then from there, only the members of that local authority could vote on who the local leader was going to be, which can easily be done through some sort of online administrative system. And it's easy enough to set that up. Then you could have regional consultants and a national spokesperson or something like that, but with those extra, I hate to use the word powers, but in theory, the influence that those positions would give someone would have to look at a way for them to concede elsewhere. So if, say for example, just take all the rest of the UK out of the equation at the moment, because we all know how Scottish politics work. You get 32 local authorities. We have 8 regional electoral regions for Holyrood, and most parties have a leader or co-leaders and stuff like that. In theory, we could have 32 local leaders. This is a party upside down. You've got your 32 local leaders with the powers that leadership normally comes with, but only limited to their local area. And the administration system completely separate. So they could ask the administrators, like, okay, this is the leaflet design we're going for, or I'm looking to have a communication sent out, or I'm looking for a social media web page, or whatever else, They can ask or instruct the administrators to arrange that for them, but then they wouldn't be able to just destroy it afterwards just because it fell out with someone.
Yeah.
You know, they would have an official Facebook page, you know, the East Ayrshire Liberty Party page or something like that, and kind of take it from there. Of those local leaders, because we have 8 regional areas, those local leaders could then opt in to become the regional regional consultant, not coordinator, but consultant, simply because, and language is important here, right? They're leaders at a local level, but they're consultants at a regional level. So those 8 regions, wherever the local leader is based on their own personal address, they could put themselves forward to become the regional consultant. So they then would have the ability to go around all the local leaders within their region to gain their viewpoints and share ideas and stuff like that, and meet with the other regional coordinators at a national level to share ideas. Oh, this is working, or why we tried that, but it didn't work for us, but we don't know why, or we think it was because of this. Things like that. Basically a kind of Alcoholics Anonymous support group. Hi, I'm Stephen, I'm the local leader for East Ayrshire. I was having problems with this, you know, that sort of idea. And not one of them would be able to dictate to the other what they should or shouldn't be doing. They're consultants, advisors, support workers, fucking fans at a football game. It's like, go Kieran, you know, you can do it. You know, stuff like that. But Wayne's laughing at me.
Like you're scaring you down the car.
Oh, I'm scaring the cat, apparently. So this cat should be scared of me, you know. He's no scared when I hand him food. Huh? So yeah, that you know, that sort of you know, that's how the organisation should be working, and because we know that a political party requires a leader to be legally registered, we don't have to call that person a leader. Excuse me. I was going to suggest, out of those 8 national regional consultants, we have 1 national spokesperson who gives up a fucking shitload of stuff, so they wouldn't be allowed to vote at AGMs and stuff like that. They would have no vote anywhere, but they would be registered as a party leader and be able to speak at events as on behalf of the party. But they'd be elected into that position by the entire membership, you know. So, but you would have to have the influence at local level to have the local leader's position. You would then have to have influence at a regional level so that the regional members then elected you out of the local leaders to be the regional coordinator or the regional consultant. And then you'd have to have the national vote to get the position of national spokesperson. So you would have the confidence of the party and the influence to do so, but in turn you're giving up any rights to actually vote or dictate on anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
interesting.
in
But
essential, it's a ceremonial position
it's interesting,
with
but
a lot of influence, but zero power. If that makes sense. Have you lost your microphone, Duncan?
oh, sorry, mate, it just turned off for a second. It is interesting, but I've got this thing about bureaucracy. It just seems like there's too much bureaucracy would happen to actually get a political party started that way. And I know it would be different if it was bigger, but at the start, can we not like start a wee bit more simpler?
Well, yes, and it's simply within the same framework or structure. simply where no one in an area has nominated themselves to be a local leader, then no local leader would be appointed. As we still have members with all their voting rights, AGMs and everything, they just wouldn't have a local leader because no one's nominated themselves. And the same with a region. If there's no regional representation at a local leader level, then there's no regional representation. So it works. It works at a small scale as well. But the structure in the system is there so that as the party grows, these positions are automatically filled because these positions exist. They're just not filled by any person simply because that person hasn't joined the party yet. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Have you discussed what the logo might be like for the party?
The local leader position.
No, I mean like the actual
Or
emblem.
the logo. Yeah, that's Agenda 5. So, well, we agree not to have an HQ address at the moment, or agree on a location for one, and have a chat later on in group, just to brainstorm some ideas.
Yeah.
Right. What did you think of having the 3 different addresses, Duncan, without registering 3 different branches?
Oh, is it on me now? I did like it, but it just seems a little bit complicated. I'm quite simple as, you know that.
Yeah. No disagreements there.
It's just I just think, in my personal opinion, it looks complicated on the outside, but when you probably explain it more, I'll probably understand it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing set in stone here at the moment, and I've still to look at the English political system to come up with a system for England, and same with Wales. The Welsh Assembly is quite similar to the Scottish Holyrood Parliament, so it's just a few regions. With England, although they do have regions, there's no electoral position. So it might just be a case of we decide what the dividing lines are. You know, we divide the number of councils into, say, 8 different. You know, divide the total number of councils by 8 and separate them out that way, just to get some sort of consultancy base going, and allow the members in a short list of potential national spokespersons, and of the 3 that do become elected to the national spokespersons for each of the countries. Hypothetically, if the party was ever to get elected into government at Westminster, it tends to be the leader is the default. So of those 3 national spokespersons, we would have to then, decide on who. But the UK membership would then have that vote, but they'd be able to do so online to make it as simple as possible. They wouldn't have to attend an AGM in person, if that makes sense. And even at that, yeah, you could have AGMs for the humdrum stuff, but have separate, there's nothing in political law that says you have to hold an AGM to elect a leader or anything like that, or to hold internal elections. So these things do not need to be tied to an AGM as part of the constitution.
Well, our first policy could be make an English Parliament.
Oh, independence for England. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
Because they can't just say, "Oh, we're just a bunch of Scottish people," if we want England to be independent as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have, we do have a few people in England that are interested. Just like yourselves, you are all coming from different places, but you have your own vested interests in this sort of idea. There is that. Article 3 was registered officers to open. I think we can all just brainstorm who are going to be the guinea pigs to take the positions just to get the party up and running. And then once there's actually a kind of membership process, we can elect the people who actually want to do these sort of things. But if anyone wants to be a registered officer, doesn't matter what the you could be the party leader if you wanted to, just to get the ball rolling. But again, with the constitution that we're building, you would have zero power. So we don't need to worry about who the actual leader is or anything. And again, you would have to just be careful if you've got ties or conflicts of interest. Just don't put yourself forward. No explanation or apology needed. We all have our own issues or confidence and things like that. Some of you are still tied as members to a rival organisation, so you might not want to jeopardise that.
You talk about me?
And Kieran and Steph, Adam, Carly, they're all members of the SLP. I know Adam and Carly aren't here at the moment, so and then there's independent libertarians who are part of the Independents for Liberty, who have in their own constitution that they can't be members of a political party and stuff like that. So they would have to give up their Independents for Liberty agreement to become a member of the party. So, but again, it's just, it doesn't even matter. I dare say we'd be able to twist Steph's mother's arm into becoming a registered officer just for the sake of it. She does tend to help out a lot when Steph needs a little bit of help with something political. She knows nothing about politics or anything like that. But again, it's just a real living legal person with their ID that's willing to just open the thing up.
But is that not the best politician who just doesn't care about politics?
Yeah, exactly. who has no, so we could make Steph's mum leader of the party or something. Not that she's listening. Can your mum be leader of the party? Right, okay, so we'll leave that open, just like the HQ address and stuff like that. We'll leave that open for brainstorming. The basic structural layout and possible concerns, I think we've covered a lot of that already. Any other things about that just now, or?
When is the right-wing death squads going to happen?
Well, I suppose we could put a right-wing death squad caucus into motion just now if you're willing to be the first victim voluntarily.
No comment.
Well, we could always rope James into it. He doesn't know anything about this, but we could always just involuntarily arrange for James to be the first victim. So
I'm sorry. I've always been the class clown. I was always me in the back of the class. So sorry about this.
Right. You were not alone. I think most of us were class clowns at some point. Yeah. Scotty, you as well?
Aye.
Yeah, see. Right, okay. Final agenda item: party colours and logo.
Scotty, I know
Brown.
what your reaction's going to be already. You're going to be red, white, and blue, aren't you?
What?
You're going to be red, white, and blue.
All right.
If you're going red, white, and blue, I'll follow suit.
Oh, a bunch of Huns.
Hey, I'm wearing green, just nothing to do with football.
No, I'm just a wee St Mirren fan, so I don't care.
What is it, St Mirren
Black
fan?
and
So,
white.
I wasn't talking about colour. Paisley pansies or
I know Paisley's a shithole, but you don't have to call it that.
I didn't, I called them pansies. Yeah, I used to live in Paisley briefly at one point, you know, so I can't.
Aye, a condolence.
Yeah. So did my sister. She lived in Paisley for years. She's
Yeah,
Boston.
It affects you too much. I would never want to live here.
You can take the lassie out of Paisley, but you know. In fact, that could actually sound even worse than I was intending it to.
Remember, it's getting recorded.
I know if any one of you dare show this, I'll get my boys put it. But it's my sister, it's all right, you know. I can slag it off all I want. Did we even invite her to the wedding? Okay.
Did you remember your own wedding? Don't say anything in front of your wife.
We forgot to invite my sister to the wedding. We're just about to wrap up. So right.
I need to go. I need to go at the moment. I need to do something.
Right, okay. Message me through suggestions for colours and logos.
No worries. Sorry about this, mate.
No worries, right? Speak to her.
Right, bye.
See you, mate.
Let's see.
Do you have any suggestions for colours?
Purple tends to be like a generic sort of middle ground, sort of supposed to be relative to Liberty. Purple's supposed to be like the sort of colour because it's midway between the red and the blue. When it's supposed to be centrist, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. But
The UKIP have that colour already, and they're supposedly libertarian. They've got
they started off in the roots as somewhat, you know, as somewhat of a liberal sort of party that stood for free markets and everything, and then they pandered to the left just to try and get the whole Brexit thing, and then you see where it all went. It kind of
and then it went full circle and started going right-wing nationalist at one point as well.
yeah.
So I think it was like a lot of ex-BNP members that signed up with them just because, independence for England and UK or whatever. They weren't even caring about England, they were UK. You know, but again, I mean, there's something about party colours that we have to be careful with when registering as well. Colours themselves are less of an issue. It's only an issue, believe it or not, with rosettes. So when you are producing rosettes, you're not allowed to have your rosette a colour scheme that could be confused with another party's.
Right, I see what you mean. Makes sense.
There's also the traditional black and yellow, you know, anarchist symbols.
Mm.
So there's that as well. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's nothing stopping us using blues or yellows, reds or greens or anything like that in theory, but just in practice, we wouldn't want to accidentally be mixed up with
Makes sense.
With someone else at the same time. It could well be, you know, because there's libertarian leanings, you know, there's quite a kind of close resemblance with the black and yellow at times. But because we are more independently minded as an organisation and encouraging independent people to run as candidates rather than party affiliates, or party people dictated to at a party level.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things I'd like to see in the constitution, that elected members are allowed a free vote. There's no party whip,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So that that there is a real sense of independence. You're there, regardless of what, whether regardless that you're in a party with general principles, you're there to take decisions that you think best influence your local area.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what someone in Inverness thinks about your little village down in the borders.
Mhm.
You're there to represent your constituencies and your local voters and stuff like that. So if that means that you have to vote differently from someone else in a different bit of the country, then so be it.
Yep.
So perhaps the colour grey, because it is we can't use grey on its own. We can't use white on its own, simply because those are the colours dedicated to independent candidates. But certainly, if there's a black and yellow, a grey strip, or I think UKIP are purple and grey. Are they solely purple? I can't remember.
I think they're so.
It's hard to say. I can.
We can always check these things out. But again, I think feel free just to come up with colour suggestions, and it might well be that if anyone wants to draw any logos and send them into the group chat or anything like that, just to get a kind of general idea. The logos are much more strict with the Electoral Commission than they are with colours. So we have to make sure we can't put anything that looks like a cross. The SNP get around there. Theirs was a cross, but they weren't allowed to use a cross, so they put a loop at the bottom of the cross because they were just trying to get people to encourage to vote for them. So psychologically, putting a cross next to it or an arrow pointing to your voting box or anything like that, these sort of things aren't allowed. And then, of course, the logo has to be unique to your organisation. So you can't just, we couldn't just copy the Libertarian logo or anything else like that, so I don't think any of us would want to. But yeah, we can decide on these things at a later date. Just before we wrap up, for the recordings of these, until we actually properly formalised, any objection to them being unlisted on YouTube with the links shared to each other at the moment, just so that it's there and can be viewed back by any of us?
That's not a problem at all. I mean, it's unlisted. It's just no issue at all. Even if it was live anyway, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's internal discussions as such, but at the same time, I think to avoid anything that's happened in the past, that full transparency has to be adhered to. Even if, I mean, we could decide, it's quite clear that at times there will be time and politically sensitive information, and you don't want that in the public or anything like that. But at the same time, we still want some degree of transparency. So it might be that we agree time limits with which to publish stuff. So it might be if it's election sensitive, then it can't be published until 3 months after the election or something like that, and things like that. So we can agree these things, and it can be put, as unlisted videos on an official channel you know, YouTube, for example, or
Mhm.
any of the others.
Yeah.
That way, it's not really public. You would have to search for the video that you were looking for. You wouldn't be able to do it just by going to the party's page.
Yeah.
As such, but at the same time, if there was a section within the website that, you know, historical minutes and meetings, then it might be an idea. It'd be interesting from a historical point of view. You know, 100 years down the line, you know, oh, how did this all start? And there's us laughing and joking and slagging each other off. You know, the very first meeting. Oh God, that'd be terrible. I should have worn something better. Lost a
At
bit
least
of
I
weight or
dressed for
something.
the occasion.
You weren't dressed for this occasion.
No.
You were out campaigning. So, right, okay. What I'll do is I'll organise a copy to go up on a kind of unlisted. So it's only the people with the link that would actually be able to see it. And then when we're properly registered and more organised, we can have these things sort of independently managed.
Yep.
By, you know, the sort of civil service that we were talking about, the party civil service, whose job was to provide a chairman and a secretary, so that minutes and meetings were all recorded and
Absolutely.
arranged, so that if you know, local leaders were having a regional, you know, get together or something like that, or the consultants, for example, were meeting up, they'd be able to meet up on a video chat, and the administrative service would arrange it for them and record it for them and make sure it was available for them to view back at the appropriate time frame.
Yep.
And in that way, there's no, oh, he was supposed to do it, or I thought you were doing it, or why do we not have a chairman? What's the agenda for today? You know, all that bullshit will just all go. And then there'll actually be someone with an agenda for all of them. Stopping this digressing off into, you know, silly bits of banter when it's inappropriate at times. Duncan and his fucking football team in Paisley. He's not even here. He can watch it back. Brilliant. Transparency, it works.
Sorry, that was my fault as well.
I know. Anything else, or? Yeah. I mean, it's early days, so we're going to have more questions than answers at the moment.
I'm still trying to speak with Cameron to see if he's want to come on board with us.
Oh, your friend Cameron.
Right. I don't know if he will or not, but I'll have a chat.
He's welcome to join some of the meetings and see what it's about.
Yeah. Scotty knows
It might-
Cameron very well. Cameron's a bit temperamental, quite high maintenance at times, isn't he, Scotty? So it's gonna have to try.
He can dip his toes in the water and dip back straight
Yeah.
back out. You know, there's no.
Can be quite a temperamental little fucker at times.
There's no one band except for Tams. There's no Tams. So no Tams allowed. No homers allowed. Oh, that's terrible. Right, I'll save this recording, stick it up somewhere that everyone can refer back to it.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice
thank
seeing
you
you,
very much.
Scotty and Duncan.
Well,
Yep.
if Duncan's watching back, thanks, Duncan. My
Right.
child is looking at me strangely. I don't blame him. Right, enjoy your nights. Thanks very much.
See you, Scotty.
Right. See you. Yeah.